flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let the records reflect the members that are present here this evening. Commission members should have received the draft minutes for August 26, 2024. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes from August 26th as written.
Is there a second? Second by Bill. Further discussion? Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Carried. Thank you. Delegations and action items. Curleaf Concept Site Plan Presentation. Daryl, would you like to lead us off on that? And since we got a pretty good, look like representation here tonight.
So gentlemen and principals out here, right now we're calling it Cure Leaf. I spoke with David Beecraft Friday, I think it was. I'm waiting for his invoicing. Much like a VAPCO third amended, this site has had previous work done to it, so there'll probably be something amended. The name may change, so don't let that scare you. So Cure Leaf is here to present a concept site plan. They want to do an outside grow. So they have plenty of land there. They're going to explain their project once they get up to the lectern. Anybody here from the audience who will speak, please go to the lectern when you're asked and say your name and address. I appreciate that. Anything else, sir?
No, I think Representative would like to come start us off here.
Good evening, all. Chris Elbridge, the operations manager here in town, so I'm your local guy. The folks with me are a couple of our engineers that are working on a project, and then one of our folks from our engineering team in-house is here with us. So pretty big project that we're working on here. Maybe I'll have you guys do a walk through kind of what the process is, but generally speaking, we've got about 10 acres out there, and what we're looking to do is do an outdoor grow. That grow would be completely outdoors. There would be no greenhouse or anything like that, just straight outdoor grow. This is going to help us with what we need to do for revenue and bringing back the size. We don't have a big enough building to continue to keep up with the current market. As you know, in July of last year, they ended up going recreational. So our indoor, we're one of the smallest grows inside the state. So we're trying to make that expansion and get a little bit larger. We plan on doing beds outside, but they're going to be growing in pots. Okay, so looking at an additional probably about 5,000 plants outside. No real disturbance to the ground for the most part, except for maybe putting in our tanks. We're going to have two 15,000-gallon tanks that we're going to put outside to feed our garden, and there's going to be an additional tank inside that will feed those two tanks. So we can feed that garden. Our season's going to be from April to October timeframe, roughly, depending on what the weather predicts outside. You know, if it's still cold out in April, we won't be growing at all. Just it's going to depend on that time of the year. We're going to use what we call auto plants at that time. So autos just automatically go into their cycle and start to blossom. Our other ones are called photo periods. So the first half of the season, we're going to grow in that. And then the second half of the season will be our photos. So those will be from seed or from clone. And those will grow about 3 to 4 months. Same thing. And we'll have 2 harvests a year. So it's going to be a fair amount of material for us to pull in. If that makes sense. Am I missing anything? Yeah, very good. Yeah, so the addition of about 20 headcount for this facility for that time, it's going to be seasonal, so that's the intent. We're looking to put in another 30 parking spaces, paved parking inside of the fence. We're gonna have 10-foot fences around the outside of the building. It's gonna be fully fenced in, and then with that fencing, it's gonna have a privacy barrier around the inside of that to keep that from being obvious of what it is. I mean, most people in town know what we are and what we do, but there's some things we're trying to mitigate to make it a little less obvious, right? I think it's tough to do sometimes, though, but that's the intent with that. That'll have all the video surveillance and all that stuff will be outside as well. So within the regulations of the state, the requirement is to have that 24 surveillance on that. So we'll have the 24-hour surveillance on it with the fences. I think that's everything that's popping in my mind right now.
Okay.
Any questions from me, gentlemen?
Go ahead. Who's somebody?
Go ahead, Chris, start out.
Go ahead, Chris.
I got mine marked down, so you go ahead.
Are these are these raised planters, or are these like raised beds like you do in your garden? You know, does this is there any recycling of the irrigation water, or how does all that function?
So these aren't raised beds or anything like that. We're going to be growing out of pots. So I think we got 15-gallon pots that we're looking to grow in right now. That material will be reused throughout our cycle. The water will go into them. That's going to go straight in through them. Most of that's going to be absorbed through the plants, and then it'll evaporate out. Yeah.
Be like in a trough or something that you set the pots in, or are they just going to be sitting on the ground?
Potentially, we're going to have weed barriers on the ground that we're going to make into beds, which is what we're calling beds. They'll have weed barriers down, and then we're going to have, which is if I remember right, it's 4 foot and 4 foot. So a total of 8 foot wide. These are going to be about 120 feet long. And then we're going to have 2 plants in a 4-foot space. So every 4 feet we'll have another plant. And that's just going to be the weed barrier down and then the pots on top of that.
How will you irrigate those?
That's going to have above ground irrigation lines. So we'll have those connected in kind of what you would see like an outdoor farm whenever they would have their stuff out there and kind of put that out. We'll have emitters that go into those. So those emitters will go into each one of the plants, and then we'll feed them certain times a day. It's really going to be a pretty manual process where the team's going to go out, they're going to turn on their valves, they're going to let it run for a certain amount of time, and they're going to shut that back off.
This type of facility, I'm assuming it's been used in other parts of the state?
Yeah.
Outside growing?
For the outdoor grow, yes, sir. There's multiple sites in the state that have them. There's one on the opposite side of the shore. I think Calta is that one. There's one out by Cumberland. They have an outdoor grow, and they're situated directly in a city, a little bit larger than what we are. But they do the same thing. They're growing outdoors. A lot of them grow directly in the ground, though. There's GTI as well. There's probably about 3 or 4 that are inside the state that do the exact type of grow that we're trying to do. And there's a number of other ones that have like greenhouses.
Will you harvest them from outside, or will they be moved inside?
So what will happen is we'll go through our season, we'll harvest them. They'll go into either freezers or dryers, then freezers, and then they'll go inside the building to be processed. So most of the material that we're looking to use are going to be processed material. It's not going to be just that raw flour material. It's going to go into extraction. Our laboratory will go through the process of extracting the oil out of the majority of that.
Are you using the whole building now, or just the front half?
We're using the entire thing, sir.
Pardon me?
The entire thing.
The entire building?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right now we're at like 55,000 square foot. Whenever we first moved into the building as grassroots back years ago, I think it's about a little over 6 years now. We started with what they called phase 1. So that first part of the building had 6 flower rooms in it. Since then, we've added 8 additional flower rooms in the rear of the building, so that I think it's 20 or 30,000 square foot in the back. That was an add-on. It was just a shell at the time. Is all grow rooms now. So we got a lot of storage inside of hallways with a lot of our stuff, like packaging and things along that nature, because there's just not enough room inside the building.
Will these growing beds allow you to clear some room inside the building for storage, or do you look at another future physical expansion of the building itself?
Currently, this is not going to help us with indoor storage at all. That's why there's going to be freezers and things like that that we're going to add to the outside. Then after that, they're going to go out the door. So it's going to be a product flip. Right now, as it stands today, everything we're going to be adding is going to be outside. There's not going to be an addition to the inside this year. Possibility in the future, depending on how this market continues to build out, if it continues to be as profitable as it is currently, and it has that ability to expand, then that's what we'll be looking to do, but that's after we get through a couple seasons of grow.
I don't see any stormwater management and bioretention in this. I would assume that there would have to be, considering the amount of additional paved area that you're adding for the parking. I don't know if you always want to address that, but, and where that might be, just so we have an idea.
Sure. I'm Jeff Furham with BPR LLC. I'm a project manager for this project. So we are going to have an initial conversation with Carroll County. Obviously, we're going to have to treat the proposed parking. Likely, we would probably try to accommodate that with an underground stone storage facility. If we have to treat, so the proposed facilities on what would be the south side of the building, the trailers for the freezers, the portable freezers, the dressing rooms. So these are all going to be trailered, so they'll be movable. I think some of them are going to stay on site. Some of them might be moved
Some are going to be rental.
for rental. Some may go off-site seasonal. If the county requires us to address that, we think there's potential with the existing stormwater facility, which would be to the east of the building, I believe, to possibly accommodate those, since they're a minor amount of, if they call them impervious, likely we'd try to address it.
Right, I didn't know if that would count, because they would be, because they are relocatable.
Yeah,
That's
we're hoping the county
counts
won't
in-
count that, but it's up to their interpretation, you know.
I don't know.
They are technically impervious
Yes.
things, so.
But none of the plan area will count, right?
The planning area should not count. The pots that they're using will be typical pots with weep holes in the bottom, so anything
Right.
that's not absorbed will
go,
go straight into
It's
the
just
ground.
really
so.
the proposed parking areas, really, I
So
guess.
while you're still in the parking area, the new parking area you're putting in, that's to accommodate the new employees?
Yes, that'll be for the
So what's
accommodate.
going to
the new-
happen to all the additional parking that you're over parking now?
Well,
For what you
this
have.
30 is going to be more than what we have for our current, what we're planning on bringing on head count. So the head count we're planning on bringing on is only 20 people.
Bring it on 20,
I
you
think
got
they
30.
currently, even with the additional
70-some
staff,
positions.
I think they currently meet the parking without the 30 additional. They're just doing the 30 additional to alleviate am I correct, Darrell?
So Chairman, so they have 80 employees now. They're going to be bringing on 20 seasonal. Morning.
You said 80 plus 20.
Yeah, so, and that would be, again, the 20 would be seasonal, like 9 months out of the year, whatever. But the requirement is one parking space per 2 employees on the busiest shift. All right, so that's the requirement for industrial.
Yeah, but also in our parking spots, 20-foot long, they only have down 18.
I didn't,
18 is, I thought standard.
Yeah, 18 foot is a standard
but
20 is Taneytown
for
standards.
car parking, yeah.
you're back, if you can park over the spot in that case.
If you're not obstructing a public way or the back of the vehicle doesn't block anything, we can accept an 18-foot parking spot where it basically like just backs up to lawn or something.
Well, on April 29th, you told us Taneytown standards were 20-foot long parking.
That is the standard.
Okay, so we're waiving our standards for them.
No.
Another exception or what?
If you're, like Jim said, if you back your space in and it goes over a sidewalk, that's not allowed. But if you're backing up to like grass, then you're okay to overhang.
I understand.
Is that written into the code somewhere? Okay. I never delved that deep into it, so I didn't.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Take the deep dive. The only other comment I would make, this is a little picky, but just Maryland 140 in that direction is FSK Highway, not Taneytown Pike. Just so
We'll be corrected.
somebody at the county may catch that, you know. Any plans for any kind of, later on, tenting over these in some way to try to increase your growing season?
That's something that we still haven't completely pulled together, right? So ideally, the new boss is telling me that we're gonna run this season with as minimal as possible and then reevaluate after we finish this first season. There is a possibility that these go to what we call hoop houses or even greenhouses at some point in time. It just really depends on how well the season goes for us. It's been pretty successful in other parts of the state, and that's why they're really basing off of this model.
If they're growing it in Cumberland.
Yep, any other thoughts on what your fencing is gonna look like? So it's gonna be 10-foot high, right?
That's correct.
So is that okay? I mean.
It's gonna be private fence though, right? It's gonna have the slats between,
It's a wrap. It's like, I don't know what that cloth is that you put around the inside. It's not the slats that go through individually.
so you can see through it?
Ideally, you won't be able to see through it. It's,
Okay.
Now-
And then,
the intention, it's like a blind, to try and treat it as a
Okay.
blind.
and I noticed in some areas you were putting some screening. Are we gonna do any buffering around what's in front towards 140 with some shrubbery, some trees, something like that? Or will we wait for we hear from the county?
Landscaping and the full site plan will become part of the plan.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we're covered and you're aware of, we want to buffer this somehow.
So is the 10-foot high fence a special fence for us? I thought 6-foot was,
Well, this is industrial.
so it's different for industrial, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I'm right on that, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought, yep.
Yeah. I read the 6-foot, I didn't read the 10-foot somewhere, so I'll look for that.
Different section.
I understand, yep. The only other question I had, I saw there was two 1,500 or 15,000 gallon tanks. Are you, any thoughts on making sure you have like a fire department hook up to them, just in the event that
I
you
can
need
tell
it?
you that I don't know that, but that's something we can definitely explore. I'm not sure if we had that.
Not that we want you to use it, but if we needed to use it, it would be there.
Right.
How are those tanks filled?
So that's where we have a couple ideas. So there's a couple things we're looking at. There's one where we're trying to collect the condensate off of our HVAC systems inside. There's a couple other recycling ideas that we're looking at for rainwater collection, as well as collecting the water we're using as runoff indoors. And then the other part of this, we were talking with bringing possible delivery or some more water from the city.
So what is the anticipation on water usage?
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, we would have to know what your anticipated water draw would be.
Right.
That's, because that really matters to us here, and unfortunately,
100%.
we are limited in the amount of water that we can dish out.
Correct.
So, that will be an important issue for you to have an answer to.
Absolutely. No, we actually discussed this a little while ago about what we think we're going to be on the high side of the peak of the season versus what it will be. And we're going to put a great deal of detail into figuring out exactly what we need. It's going to be really dependent on the size of pot. So if we think we need to use less water with that, we can use a smaller size pot, which will cause us to have less watering stored a day, less mass to kind of fill there.
So right now, there's two, what I see, two 15,000 gallon tanks?
That's correct outside. There's an additional tank going inside the building to kind of feed those two as well.
Okay.
Is that where you do the collection from the inside, from the air conditioning units? Is that
That will
what
be,
goes to that tank?
it'll be pumped back in, yes.
Okay.
There's a bit of work that still has to be done with that to get all that tied together.
So the idea being you'd collect everything you could collect on the inside, it would go to that tank and then get pumped out to the other tanks as necessary.
It'd have to go through a filtering system before we use it, so, same thing with the rainwater. This is tough to put a amount on rainwater, right? That's the tougher part, and even the same thing with the condensate to understand how much we're gonna produce from that alone. So, but there's definitely some opportunities there, especially with our RO system right now. We're probably gonna go away from the RO system altogether and go to a different system that doesn't use as much, or make as much waste. So right now, it's 2 gallons to 1 gallon for our indoor grow. As we go away from that, then we should be able to recoup part of that other gallon.
What's the lighting gonna be at night?
It's
I'm
outdoor lighting.
concerned about the neighbors around that area. I mean,
There'll be no grow lighting, it's all just
mean,
natural light.
No grow lighting.
I'm
It's all
talking about
outdoor grow.
security lighting, security lighting.
There's a whole
Good
site
luck.
plan for that with the outside, but there's a couple of poles that are gonna be out there that oversee it, and they're all gonna have, the exterior's gonna have multiple cameras, lights, same thing with the interior.
Yeah, I think Bill's
pick
concern, I
that
think,
up.
is making sure that everything is directed to
Down.
minimize light pollution
We'll pick
off
that
of
up
the
on
site.
Okay.
The others. Yeah, the lighting.
Yeah, the idea would have the night vision cameras. I mean, we have those currently.
Okay, good.
Will you have 24-hour security on site, like walking the perimeter kind of thing?
We
or-
won't. We will have 24-hour surveillance through a surveillance company, which is similar to what we have today.
And that's what everybody else has. I'm thinking you're taking the ideas from Cumberland and the other,
Yes, sir.
what has worked.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, it's very, very similar to what we've already seen in the state. State regulations don't require security at a facility at all. So, you know, the company's taking, yeah, I know, I hear you. Yeah, so that's where the security systems come in, and that's where the surveillance comes
Okay.
through a security company.
all right, thanks.
Jim, if I could ask you a question, back with the original, was there any stipulation with the final approval on the other ones that all growing or planting had to be inside a building? Do you recall any discussion at that point or time?
If there was, it would have been specific to each of the site development plans. So they've already come in with a couple different versions with the build-out that was mentioned a little while ago was a separate site plan. That was the last thing that was before the board. So if there was discussion about indoor versus outdoor, it would have been relative to that particular site plan.
Okay.
I think I'd be really interested in what your fencing and shrubbery looks like, you know, when you get further into your plans. With a 10-foot high fence, I don't want it to look like a prison.
Right, I understand that.
So I'm not sure what it's going to look like.
Yeah, but my concern is if it doesn't, it'll look like a, well, people will be scaling the fence on a regular
Invitation.
basis.
Yeah.
It may look like an invitation.
Or they'll electrify the thing.
Yeah, maybe.
That is part of the reason why we're trying to back away certain parts of the yard, right? So back by the diamond and back by the football field, we're looking to come across that to where we're backed away from that property line pretty far. To try and stay on the high side of that hill, or the way the grade goes will keep us about 10 feet above where that ground is.
Yeah. I see the dugout didn't stay very far from your line.
No, it did not.
No, sir. Yeah, it's like, it's right about on it, or inside of it, depending on how you look at it. But our fencing there is backed up off the hill from that point, so it's gonna be on the higher side of the hill, which has that grading. So there's about a 10-foot drop from there to that dugout. So I'm trying to keep the fence up on top and then curve it around as it goes towards our swell that's back there, just to kind of keep it away. There's almost a built berm already on that side of the building. It's on the football side. So we're trying to stay up on top of that to keep that as high as we can on the hill. So it's not easy to see in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any odor from the plants as they're growing? I get a number of, I don't want to say complaints because that probably isn't the right word, but I get a lot of, I'm informed consistently about how often it can be smelled through town, and we've got football, athletic fields right there. So
Yeah.
Can you address that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of ways that we do it. Currently, indoors, we have the scrubbing system. Outdoors, there's actually a different system that uses a eucalyptus mist. So it mists this into the air to try and mitigate that smell.
Chris, I think it's also important to understand that it's not combusted, right? So sometimes the common smells that you may find in communities where it's allowed is the smell of combusted cannabis. This is a flower,
Right.
These are natural terpenes that you will smell in the air. They're a little bit different. They're uncommon to this particular microclimate, but where these outdoor grows are in other locations, this is a natural terpene. These are natural flowers. So this is not combusted. These are not combusted smells.
Right.
The ones that mostly are.
So understanding that natural aroma does not release any of the, shall we say, active elements of the plant. But most people don't know that, and I certainly didn't until you said that a minute ago. So I think there'd be some educational process involved in this also.
Other questions?
good for now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
no, they definitely do.
Do we have any type of time frame that you're looking, I mean, is this, we're looking at growing season next year, right?
That's correct.
In April?
Yeah, ideally, I mean, with the amount of stuff that we're doing on the property, it's a aggressive timeline, but I think it's doable, depending on how things go and making sure that we're prepared for it.
I do have one more question that's a little bit, not so much a planning commission question, although it is somewhat, but this is, coming from Councilman Tillman. You're bringing in 20 seasonal labor type people. And then I assume that come November or whatever, you'll be laying them off. It's widely known, and this is not a Taneytown thing, this is everywhere, there's shortages of affordable housing. I don't know what you plan on paying these folks, it's not really my business to know that, but, if you have people who are gonna be unemployed for 4 or 5 months out of the year, it's gonna be kind of difficult for them to afford housing here locally. I don't know, have you given any thought to that, in terms of where your workforce is gonna live or come from, or what's gonna happen with that?
Absolutely.
I think just from a, and affordable housing is a big deal with the state right now, and I think that it's something that probably should be addressed.
Absolutely.
Could you come up to the microphone, because the folks at home or whatever, and in the recording, they can't hear you from back there, so it helps
Yeah,
if you come
I'm
up to the mic.
George Shidlovsky. I'm from Curaleaf. I think if I could suggest, just let's be careful with terminology. I know we use the word seasonal, but these are just part-time workers. We're not bringing people in from outside that might be categorized as, immigrants, or I don't want to say those horrible things, but these are just part-time workers. They're fully W-2'd. These are fully paid above board staff.
That wasn't the.
No, there's just some misunderstanding.
No, and I didn't mean to imply that at all.
Right.
But, I'm just saying that, you've got, companies around here have a hard enough trying to find help as it is. So, if you're talking about seasonal help, where are they gonna come from, where are they gonna stay while they're here, because they're obviously not going to be permanent. So that's, just something that probably needs to be addressed.
Point taken, for sure.
There are, a part of that 20, we do intend on being permanent staff as well. So there's going to be a core team that's going to be responsible for the running of the outside. So we're going to bring in another supervisor, several leads that are all going to be part of our full-time staff. And then once the season's over, they're going to come inside and help with the indoor until it's time to start planning the outdoor again. But I'm not sure the exact number of what that's going to be out of that percent.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone from the floor that would have some questions or comments? If you do, please come forward and state your name.
I'm Bernie Knox, a neighbor. I can't hear well, so a lot of what you said I don't understand. But my main question is about the odor that you brought up of a skunk. Is that going to increase or decrease?
I don't want to speak for you, Chris, so why don't you?
Go ahead and use that, yeah.
So exactly, the same thing I was talking about a little bit earlier is we do have a mitigation process to spray and mist oil. It's going to help mask that smell, but there is the potential for it to be louder, at least to start with, until we get that process in place.
We smell it sometimes very bad. What's going on then?
It's indoors, so a lot of that stuff is usually whenever we're doing like a harvest, the smell can travel a little more as it gets to be weather like we have outside where it's a little moist. The air has fog in it. Typically, you'll smell that a little bit more then. We do have scrubbers inside the building to try and mitigate that smell.
So it's not going to increase.
And say it's not going to increase, but there is a different mitigation process that we're going to be looking at to keep that from getting worse than what it is. And right now, we're not spraying the eucalyptus oil. It's just a filtering system inside So when we go outside, it'll be an actual eucalyptus or an oil that'll be misted throughout the day.
Well, the reason I asked, several years ago, they built a chicken house in Kmart area. And the town was upset because they didn't get it passed, approve it with the town. And sometimes the odors coming from there, I would prefer the chicken house.
Spent a lot of time on Eastern
Thank you,
Shore.
Mr. Knox.
I know
Does
that's-
anyone else would like to speak? This is just a presentation. This will be coming before us a few more times. So
There's no,
we'll welcome any comments.
is there any, are we approving her?
No, there's no
Nope.
approval. This is just presentation.
Okay.
Just to inform us of what's on the agenda for coming up, or may not. But that's all this evening is.
It still has to be approved through the state as well. So without approval from you all, we won't get approval from the state. They're waiting for municipal approval. So if that doesn't happen anytime soon, this project doesn't happen.
At what level? I mean, do we need to have the final plans approved, or
No,
the
they just
concept
wanna
is,
know that you're
concept
open to
approval?
us
Okay.
Doing this project. So if you do that, then we can move forward with that process as far as approval goes. As for whether it happens or not, again, that's still up to you.
So basically, just like the first time it went through.
Yeah, I would
It
say
comes
it's
up-
very similar to
similar.
the very, very beginning whenever the building opened as what it is today.
Okay.
So we'll
Alright.
still maintain what we have today, but in order for us to go outdoors and have this concept approved, it has to go through your approval first. Once you give approval, if you give approval, then we can submit that to the state. So we've already submitted to the state, but they're waiting for that part of it.
All right. I'm looking for any more questions. If not, we thank you very much.
Yep, appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you all for your time.
And good luck with your venture. Moving on. You want to go on with your report?
Sure.
Your folks are welcome to
Thank you very much.
leave or stay, whichever.
Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Thanks, Chris. See you. See you later, bud. Thank you, sir.
Nobody stand.
Can we have someone left?
We got one. You're the winner.
You get the door prize.
All right. Moving on. Daryl, your report?
Sure. So I have on their public service announcement, the financials disclosure. I appreciate all the handed it in. The goal was to get these in the Claire as quickly as possible, because every quarter it's drags on and drags on and drags on, and she has other things to do. So I'm not going to read each one of these things each month. I mean, you guys do
Okay.
very well at reading, especially Brad. He's quite the reader, I'll tell you that. But things like Chairman Parker, City Manager Wybrecht, myself, and principals from the VAPCO, they had a little bit of a challenge. The owner of a VAPCO, they purchased a new line of equipment, and they want to put it in their worldwide headquarters. To do that, they had to go away from the green roof and just modify all the mechanicals. I can't imagine what that's got to be. But the good thing here is that in doing so, they're going to correct a lot of stormwater management on the other side of the property that has been a little bit of a scenario coming down on the Frederick side of the.
Cross Mill Road, the Cross Mill side?
Yeah, exactly. So now what we're going to do, so red lines can happen, they're not changing a major part of the footprint or the scope of the job in these scenarios, but the city is requiring CDM Smith to approve those red line changes with respect to stormwater management. So we're all covered that way.
So was the green roof part of their original stormwater management, bioretention.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if they have to, now are they, are they taking out temporarily because they have to take out roof to set the thing in there? Or are they permanently removing that section of green roof and just going to be regular roof? Or what's the,
So what is not now a green roof
Yeah.
on the rest of the building is not going to be a green roof on the addition part of it now.
That's where
so the addition was the only part that was going to have a green roof?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if there was green roof on the rest of it. So the new addition that they're currently building now will not have a green roof,
be a conventional roof, right?
but instead, there's going to be some other sort of stormwater quality.
They will treat a part of the site impervious that was not previously treated per the plan. So basically, they're swapping
right.
what was the green roof, and they're going to treat a different area in lieu of that to make up for the lack of treatment that the green roof would have provided.
Okay.
So TIS, you're going to see that, traffic impact studies. There's a couple of those going on. One for the Hupton area property, which we'll discuss a little bit later on when it comes to that drawings that I had sent to you guys for,
Is that the one you have listed as the Taneytown project?
The key crossing.
Key crossing.
yeah,
So that's different from the one from the Taneytown project from Sherry Thompson?
no,
So that's the same.
yeah, that's
Is that
That's
one
the
of the
same thing.
same?
Yeah.
yeah, so we're talking about that a little bit later if you like.
Okay, I just,
Okay.
okay.
So a lot of work going on there. Jim's been working very hard with the county in trying to get recharge. So one of the next things that we need to worry about is water. Okay, and one of those aspects is the water recharge, and what we can get from the county is they've been nice enough to offer us some of that water recharge. And that's all I have on that, Jim, if you wanted to expand on that at all.
The county secures recharge easements with their county ag preservation easements that they put on properties. They have properties within our aquifer areas, and I did find out today, actually, that it's something the county administrator is able to sign an MOU with the city to dedicate that recharge to us. So now I guess the concept is now solid, that they're going to donate it to us.
Nice.
Now we need to work through the whole thing with the Department of the Environment. But at least now we have the assurance that it's going to happen. It's not a political decision. The county administrator's on board and can make that happen. Now we just need to work through all the technical stuff with the Department of the Environment. They have enough to basically offset what the state says is currently a deficit of recharge. But we're still going to need to go out and procure additional acreage or recharge easements on properties within the aquifers in order to enable additional development.
So this won't increase what we can allocate at this point in time. It just
No,
gets us out of touch with the state.
The state basically says we're already pumping more than the ground can recharge because we're only allowed to count what's under our control for recharge. So the county can help us out and kind of make us whole so that the next increase we ask for, we're starting from kind of a zero rather than a negative.
I just wonder, it seems like a no-brainer because why would the county need recharge areas? Because they don't have, water system, especially up this way. It's different down around, Eldersburg and the Freedom District, but it's a, different ballgame up here.
Well, the county doesn't have the growth up here like we have within the town limits.
Right.
So
Yes, that's what I'm
they
saying.
should be
There's no-
willing to give up some of that.
So it certainly is kind of a, they've expended funds to put these properties in ag preservation. So, I think that we're very fortunate that they are willing to donate it because it did cost them, some money to procure that.
And that area that they're willing to donate is going to be, or is part of the aquifer?
Is within our Piney Creek and Pipe Creek aquifers.
Okay.
So many years ago, the county did do this. It was all different players at that point in time, but the county had property on Bark Hill Road near FSK that they acquired, and they dedicated the recharge from that property to the city. And at the time, that allowed us to apply for an increased allocation permit for wells 15 and 16 that are the two wells in Carol Vista. So we've gone through the process once before, about, gosh, 10 or 12 years ago. But we have everybody who was part of that, other than the city attorney, you know, is gone. You know, they've moved on to different positions, or so we're kind of starting from scratch as far as the technical end of how to make it happen.
So these are properties that are already in ag pres, so there isn't going to be, there would never be any development on them to start with.
Correct.
If there are parcels out there that could be added to our recharge area, but that are not in ag pres and could be subject to development, if those are developed privately on individual wells for individual houses, does that take away their ability to be added to our aquifer recharge?
It would affect how much recharge could be credited to a property. So what we're, I suppose, having conversations with some property owners about is, you know, basically this is all essentially transferring development rights. You know, or, well, waiving development rights for, you know, revenue for payment. So, you know, if you go into ag preservation, you still may be able to do off conveyances for the farm if it's entitled to any, so that you can, you know, have a house site for your children or things like that. So most of the easements will allow that, or, you know, exclude certain areas to preserve that capability. And if we do a water recharge easement, we would probably recognize also if a property had the off conveyance ability, that we would want to make sure that that ability remains with the property. So we will probably end up requesting a percentage or a portion of the recharge that the hydrogeologists will say that property has. It may be 75 to 80%, something like that, of the recharge. And if we're talking about a 50-acre farm, that farm might have a couple off conveyances that they're able to do. So if we only take 75 or 80% of the recharge, they'll still be able to put a house on, you know, those lots that they can carve off. So a lot of moving parts with it. But again, you know, thanks to the county, it looks like we'll at least be able to start from a zero instead of a negative as far as that recharge goes.
What's the timeline on that, Jim? Because we have a lot of
things in the pipeline right now.
We have a lot of things that we have to decide and for this future of this town. In water, sewer. We're not playing games, I shouldn't say that. We're playing with numbers.
Yes.
And we have a lot going on here. And there's a lot of moving this way with us. And we still don't know that answer if we're going to be able to support it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people in this town are scratching their head on the same thing. I'll talk to a lot of people. What are we doing with traffic? What are we doing with water? What are we doing with sewer? I'm just putting it on record.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have to be done because we have how many different developments out there?
Yeah. So, right, so we need to work our way through, you know, it really is a lot of numbers. You know, it's not only what the state will approve in terms of, you know, a particular property with what they're willing to count for the recharge, but if they will link that to a particular well that we already have. You know, it's possible that we may end up needing to develop an additional well. I hope that we don't, but we also don't want to, you know, as the saying goes, put all our eggs in one basket, or in this case, a few baskets. So, you know, we have wells that can pump more, but some of them have an adverse effect on nearby properties when we pump them more. So those are going to be off the table. So we have a lot of numbers to figure out there, but then we also have numbers to figure out as far as whatever we pay to acquire recharge acreage or recharge easement, we're going to pass on to builders or developers to recover that investment. So we're going to be increasing our water impact fees or our water benefit assessments. So what will the market bear to do that?
Well, we have to make sure, not to cut you off, we have to make sure if the hypothetical of the new tower, water tower, you know, we don't know that at this point. Who's gonna take that hit? You know, the people that live already here shouldn't take that hit. You know, if people want to invest into our town, as you just said, impact fees or whatever.
Right, and so if a developer, you know, and you know, we can just lay this on the table, is Mountain Brook Farms would have to bring their own. Or we would have to try to acquire that for them and then get it back from them in the benefit assessments.
So 2 city managers ago, the view was that the developer should take all the risk and find the water source, develop the water source, deliver the water source to the city. That was the intent with Meads Crossing. That did not play out very well for the city, and the city manager subsequent to the one who was in the office when Meads Crossing started, the pendulum swung the other way, and they looked at it as the city is an infinite entity. We will be here, you know, hundreds of years from now, somebody will. So we can afford to find the water, develop the water, make it available, and then sell it when the demand arises, sell it to the developer and recover our cost at that point. So we went from putting all the risk and upfront expense on the developer to the city doing the upfront expense and then charging it back to the developer. So
Like
there's
the experience at
different
Meads
ways to-
Crossing.
different benefits and
Yeah.
downsides to it.
Yeah.
Putting the developer in charge of it, well, takes us out of the driver's seat. And some of the issues that we had with Meads Crossing, for example, was our code says you need to produce a well or to provide a well that delivers so many gallons per minute. Well, Meads Crossing didn't need that much. So they drilled a well. That well could provide enough water when it was test pumped to provide what they needed for that project. So they came back to the city and said, if I drill this farther to get your 250 gallons per minute or whatever it may have been, and I hit some contamination, who's going to pay for all that investment in that well wasted? And it just kind of started the spiral from there. And it was like, okay, well, you don't have to drill it any farther. We don't need you to give us a well that just gives us 250 gallons a minute. So,
But then
that's-
they
and
were
that's
in the
kind of
wrong
when the
aquifer
pendulum
and they were
swung
drawing
back
down on people's wells.
the other
and
way.
So
So-
that's what happens when we, you know, relax our requirements. Our requirements are in there for a purpose, and I think that.
So we have been, you know, for the last, I'll say, 10 years or so, you know, the pendulum swung to the other way, and that's where it is now, that the city intends to develop the water sources and then recover our expenses as the properties develop. So that's the model that we've been following for, you know, the last 10 years or so, maybe longer. So there is some upfront risk to it, but I guess the idea is that, you know, that development is, now unless our comprehensive plan update presents a much different picture than our current one, you know, when the numbers work, that development will come and the city will then recover its investment. So.
It just,
But it's a lot of moving parts.
kind of hoping that there was some kind of middle ground in there that we could, you know, work cooperatively with the, you know, with the developers so that they didn't feel like they were being taken for a ride by the city. And by the same token, we can't put it all to them because we have, our experience has obviously shown that we've been taken for a ride by the developers. So, you know, I'm not sure what the mechanics of that would look like, but I think that we have to have some kind of way to hybrid that system to where there is some risk sharing and responsibility.
And I think that it's most likely that we're gonna see things, see the recharge piece come into place in a way that will enable development in phases. I don't think that it's likely we're gonna procure enough recharge in one shot to build 400 houses. But what we're hoping is that we can, you know, secure enough so that as, for example, Mountain Brook Farms moves through the process, that we will have enough water available for them to build, to commit to the first phase. And then while that's ongoing, we'll continue the search for recharge and lining that up so that when they're ready for phase two, we'll be ready. But, you know, in a way, we're competing with ag preservation as well. So, you know, we have some ideas there, you know, but we're looking to try to, you know, procure as much easement at the least cost we can, the least amount of money we can spend to get it there.
But again,
And,
there's a potential there for a cooperative way to work with the county, you know, what are they studying, what are they looking at? And can we write that in at the beginning instead of having to come back and do it later?
The dialogue is ongoing. So.
All right, let's move on to the next subject.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Okay. So, all right, how about a nice, fun story? Mike Breen with Mountain Brook. I had asked him, or we had talked, and he had said that he had told Jim and I that he got a call from CLSI when they were getting ready to submit the prints for Mountain Brook. He got a phone call from CLSI and said, "Hey, I need names for these streets." He says, "How much time do I have?" He goes, "I have half an hour." So he Googled mountains. So anyway, long story short, that's how some of the names got. But I had to say this, they were very mature about our asks and queries. So I also shared that with Carroll County. So they're aware of that. So I'll further up, follow up with a conversation with the county on our names, the requests that you guys had. So Mountain Brook was pretty cool about it, and so was the county. So we'll see what comes out of that.
So hope we eliminate the road and put streets where the roads were, right?
Well, we'll see. I mean,
That's what we're looking.
they've heard our suggestions,
Okay.
so we've done that part. Met with the county commercial inspector, and long story short, they've eased up on some of the things that they were asking for the Taneytown Police Department shed. You know, the ramp and all that. I mean, the manufacturer of that shed, I said, "Hey, you have a price for an option for a ramp?" He says, "We build sheds." So it got to be more fun like that. So
Exactly.
So the county worked very nicely with us. So
Good.
that's good to go. 2 zoning board of appeals cases were heard. Both cases were granted the variances that they were asking for. Kenny's, anybody notice any landscaping happened up there at Kenny's?
Haven't been by, so I can't.
So years ago, when Kenny's came in, one row of smaller plants were not put in. And then some of the others died, the large cypresses, I think they're Lelands. Some of those died, as they do. But these landscaping plans, they're forever. You know, those buffers will be maintained. The county was on that in just less than a few minute phone call. And so those are planted. I haven't checked out the senior center yet, but that's going to be re-landscaped.
Okay.
All right. So good job for the team working with us at the county. So there's a lead and copper water supply line scenario that's going on right now per MDE. There has to be some accounting of what the water lines are made of going into people's homes. So there's a grant gotten or will be hopefully soon awarded. I think it has been awarded, Jim, for, or is it just we're waiting for the timeline?
We're waiting.
Okay. So long story short, Arrow, the engineers that are helping with this project, as well as the comp plan, a plan came up with the utilities department to put all of our prints on, download them electronically. So in my office, for those of you who have been in there, you know, I got racks and racks and racks of prints. They're heavy. They get clumsy. Every once in a while, you hang one up, and 5 minutes later, you hear this horrible noise that no person wants to hear. That's a rack of prints vomiting.
Falling off the,
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. So that's something you do the next day. But in any case, but all that, they're you know, painstakingly scanning in. They're sending us electronic copies, so that, you know, that'd be a great way to share things. Yeah, because like Tawny View, you know, there's a little bit of finding out where the water and sewer is. We know where the water and sewer is, but where do you want to get it from? What's the cheapest way? And the builder has a different slant on it than someone that lives across the street who doesn't want it coming off that side. Anyway, so that's the value in that. For all those that sign up for the MPCA, we are signed up. I delivered the different sets of, or a set of classes that they're going to be having. It's pretty exciting compared to, I mean, last year. I mean, so I don't. There's no times yet. So we're just you know, we'll find out. You know, I don't plan to go on Sunday. So my Redskins are making a run for the Super Bowl, but anyway, what? So anyway, so yeah, I'll be anxious to see the schedule as it comes out. Chairman, that's all I have.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Darryl?
Excuse me.
If not, we have anything from Jay?
No.
Okay. County update? TIF
Tip,
days?
she's not able to make this meeting.
Okay. Let's move into old business then. I guess we're talking about our comp plan. So we evidently, I don't know how many of you guys made it to the Fall Fest down here, the
Harvest Fest?
Harvest Fest.
I did not.
But I was down early when it was raining and they had a turnout. It was light, but I understand later on during the day, it picked up quite a bit. So we had a few people stop by when I was there. So the word's getting out, I guess, gradually, but.
Yeah, I've seen it on Facebook, and it there's a big splash page that comes up when the when you open the city website. I assume that also happens on the Taneytown Connect. So I haven't looked at that yet. So yeah, and I've actually had people ask me questions about it.
Yep.
You know, what's this for? Where's the information going? What do they do with it?
But
So
we got to keep pushing it.
yes,
There's a lot of people that I assumed that knew about it. They had no clue. And once I kind of explained, wow, yeah, I'd like to put some input in.
so I've gotten a lot of. I'm going to put a bunch of cards at the barber shop next door to me because those are great places for information.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of citizens not even aware of a comp plan.
No,
Yeah.
so
I think we do things on spare a moment.
So
Sometimes we do.
it's going to be hard to go on Facebook and not.
see this.
Yeah,
'cause
right.
So it hopefully it drives someone to, you know, a couple sentences. What is this comp plan thing?
Right.
So Dan's got this all over the place.
Yeah.
So appreciate that very much. And that's what it's going to take. It's, you know, we all know people. You know, it's what people do. They just, you know, oh, what? So.
So do we need to do any approval for our meetings we had just had last week?
No, sir.
On the minutes or anything?
We'll do that
we're-
next.
At their next meeting in November.
We're good. All right. New business, discussion on Key Crossing Road. Daryl, that's back in your lap.
Yeah, so during the traffic impact study for the Huffman Farm, we're sort of looking at that, all the roads around that, and, Sells Mill and Stumptown and so on and so forth. And I remember seeing this before, but on the drawing, you see there, by Old Taneytown Road going over to 140.
That's actually, I actually went back to the 2010 comprehensive plan, and this road actually is in it. I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised, because am,
Correct me if I'm wrong, area that's going across Route 140, wasn't that going to be a circle? At one time, there was some,
Overpass, wouldn't it go be an overpass or something like
well,
that?
I would
remember a
think it
circle.
probably would have had to have been an overpass, because my
Overpass.
understanding from the research that I recently did on this, that's a limited access highway. And it's that way for a reason. So it would either have to be an overpass or something. But I can't imagine, given the volumes at the circle and where this crossing would be, that the state would allow an intersection at that point.
I recall it being an overpass going across to the Huffman property.
Yeah.
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 So this is obviously well before
That was
my
30 or
time.
40
but-
years ago, yeah.
But it's probably part of the, again, part of the original bypass discussions and stuff like that. But, I can't see the state allowing that connection of this road at 140 at that location. I don't know that they would do that.
I don't understand what all the numbers are.
All the what, sir?
All the different numbers in the different developments.
They're
Because that's definitely not houses, right?
I believe it is.
Probably the plot,
just
Yeah.
the plots.
plot number.
The plot number?
The
Because
parcel
when we got
numbers.
up to like 192 or 132, all those, I didn't think it was that many plots in it.
Well, like you see 520 there by the orange line, but that's, the shop says 520 East Baltimore Street.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So our discussion about it,
I guess, what do we want to, are we going to decide something here? So one of the questions I had was exactly what you're talking about. What does it look like where we cross 140? So,
So just for reference, that's right by the pump station and the Baptist church, I think.
Right next to the Baptist church.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right. It's on the other side of the Baptist church, you're right.
yeah, I know where there's.
Pumping stations.
so what are we referring to, or what is our concern here tonight?
So, I mean, I guess basically, do we want it?
Well, so we've, in conversations with the potential developer of the property, we've pointed out this Key Crossing Road is what it's called in the comprehensive plan. And we've asked them to incorporate this, connection out to Route 140 in their concept. There have been, because as Chris pointed out, 140 is a restricted access point road east of, actually, I think it includes the roundabout.
Who's
and then
right, yeah, 'cause
east
that's
the
part of the
roundabout.
access. That's part of the access.
That state highway representatives so far are saying, well, we're not likely going to entertain a connection there. And I've pointed out that, well, state highway was among many state agencies that reviewed our comprehensive plan, and yet here it is. So we don't want to just throw in the towel and say that's not going to happen, because we're looking, at ways that traffic on that northern portion of the city can, enter and exit town without getting on the already congested East Baltimore Street. So we didn't want to just give up on the idea.
Well,
So part of what we wanted to talk about tonight is, does this connection get us something? Do we need it to go all the way over to Old Taneytown? Does that really get us anything? And if we can't get access onto 140, with this key crossing road, what are some options that you might entertain for it? And there is also, on the image that Darrell circulated, there's also, this is not on the comprehensive plan map, but it is embedded in the traffic, the circulation map. There is a realignment of Sells Mill Road that would take it from where it intersects with Route 140 now to a point more or less opposite the shopping center entrance. And that is.
Makes a ton more sense.
So that's, right, so that's one of the orange lines on there. So these are all things that are kind of in flux that we are going to need to nail down if the Hoffman property does move forward in the development process.
Yeah, I think taking out that crazy corner on Stumptown certainly makes sense.
It does make sense. Yes.
And relocating the access point for Sells Mill to Baltimore Street to be opposite the shopping center entrance makes a ton of sense. So those things are to me, no-brainers in this kind of an exercise. I guess a couple of things that come to mind with the Key Crossing Road, the question is, what does it buy us? And if it's not going to connect, if the state would let us connect to 140, it still doesn't buy us a whole lot, because what that does buy us is a whole lot of traffic coming down Roberts Mill and to Sells Mill, and bypassing East Baltimore Street, which isn't necessarily a bad thing unless you live in that little stretch of very narrow Sells Mill Road. So I'm not sure. If we had long ago thought about this connection and continuing it up around like the backside of Meadowbrook, in between Meadowbrook and Meads Crossing, to where that could have been a portion of bypass, but unfortunately, we didn't think that far ahead. That would make sense if we could attach to 140 there, and that may even make sense. That might even have made sense to State Highway. You know what I mean? To change their plans to allow something like that, but I don't know who is serviced by that other than a very small group. Or then we create a traffic problem somewhere else in the city because you get enough people complaining about speeding down Roberts Mill Road as it is.
Yeah, so I agree with some of the stuff that Chris says here, but I guess are there plans to like widen Stumptown Road ever? I mean, so to me, before I tell you whether I think they're good ideas or not, I want to know what the development is going to be in that area. Like, is it going to be one of these community villages things, or what is it going to be? I think the lower half is commercial and the upper half is development.
Stumptown Road, is that county?
So we maintain it for most of the length along the Hoffman property.
But didn't we have a developer a few years back that wanted to develop part of that site, and there was an issue with widening Stumptown Road?
So years ago, the property the city now owns that used to be the shop property had a concept development plan, and the commission at the time said that they wanted that 90-degree turn on Stumptown to be eliminated before the shop property could develop. The developer, I think, did not have much success in negotiating with other property owners to try to address that curve. Or it may have been too big of an off-site improvement for the numbers to work for the project. I don't really know the details, but the shop property project kind of fell by the wayside.
Okay.
So that straightening out that curve on Stumptown has been a goal of the Planning Commission tied to the development of this part of the city.
That was 10 or 15 years ago.
That area, basically, Stumptown has been widened along the frontage for Creekside, but then it tapers back rapidly. So basically, this development, I'm sure we would see Stumptown being widened from the Creekside width you know, through the improved area, through that orange line at least. And I guess it would also depend upon if there were houses fronting Stumptown Road and things like that, you know, that we would probably have them improve it for the length of the property.
Yeah.
So much like,
Okay.
very much like Stumptown Road is now, where you get a little bit past Keenan Street, it pinches down, right?
It does.
It was widened everywhere there was development. Where the development stops, it pinches back down to the old width. When you get to the new development, Creekside, it widens out again.
right.
And then, you know,
Right,
when
so
you
you've
get
got this
past
little
that,
stretch
it
between
pinches down.
Keenan and Creekside where,
Right.
So does that
So-
shed light on your question?
Well,
So now
yeah,
you can-
but, yeah, so my opinion is, like you say, slightly different from Chris's. So it's not, in my opinion, if you don't open it up from the pond out to there all the way, all sections of the road, there's no sense in cutting the corner out.
Right.
no, that's true.
That's like, you know, that's like the bridge on Roberts Mill Road.
Yeah.
You get bottlenecked in.
So, and then the red and white road, the cross whatever, key crossing road, if it doesn't access 140 there, I don't see the point in that either.
And that's the same way, what's the advantage of going from 140 over to the old Taneytown Road?
Yeah, I don't see it.
Because that misses our Antrim bypass altogether.
But I do agree with Chris on straightening out the.
You know, that's,
Nice to know I got
Got
you on
one
my
of 'em,
side
man.
there. Well, one other thing that just occurred to me as I'm sitting here looking at it, you know, where that orange line is there, to move the entrance, you move Sells Mill over to be square off with the entrance. Is, I don't know if you can tell me this without giving anything away, but is the development there at the Huffman property going to include the Tevis property?
No.
Okay, so that would be something, because just something that makes sense looking at this, is if you continued that orange line over to Break Iron, that would certainly get rid of that mess.
Well, that would bring everything out at a bad spot then. Break Iron, I don't think we really want more traffic on Break Iron.
Well, I don't think you'd bring any more traffic on Break Iron. I think what you'd get is you would have the folks at Creekside who wanted to get to Baltimore Street would turn left instead of right.
Yeah.
And cut over to tie it to the new entrance by the shopping center.
Right.
Just a thought, because you know, when you sit here and look at it, like, wow, why doesn't we just finish that?
So I think Dan might have observed that this property is a split between residential and commercial. So I'll say the third of the property closest to the roundabout is general business, and the rear side closer to Stumptown Road is R10,000. The sketch plans that have been shared follow that, you know, zoning split and appropriate development with a standard R10,000, you know, single-family house, residential community on the back part, and then commercial development on the front part. They are proposing an access point opposite the shopping center driveway and consideration of a signalized intersection there, which of course would be all through a traffic study and everything, and state highway and all that, of course, so no guarantees by any means there. But they recognize that that may need to be a signalized intersection. But they're proposing bringing the commercial access point out there, but they want to have additional means of ingress egress to this, you know, 100-plus acre site. And we've talked about a number of things, such as, you know, could the roundabout be reconfigured so that Sells Mill Road is a fifth leg on the roundabout? And State Highway wasn't particularly receptive to that idea either.
The geometry doesn't work.
So, so there's all kinds of circulation-related challenges with this property. And at this point, I believe the traffic study is supposed to evaluate if these connections were made, both the relocation of Sells Mill Road and if the Key Crossing Road were able to be built and connected to 140. So we're kind of waiting to see how those conversations play out and if the developer does move forward with the study to do those things. But I guess in talking with the zoning administrator, with Daryl, we were kind of questioning, even if we do get to connect Key Crossing to 140, does its continuation over to Old Taneytown do anything for us?
I don't see-
Is there benefit to keeping that?
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know that there's any benefit to the Key Crossing Road connecting to 140
Yeah.
directly unless you're gonna go ahead and widen Stumptown all the way back up to Keenan, and make that, and then it becomes a real issue then for the people who live in that part of town, because now we've created a whole new traffic flow, that, you could say they didn't sign up for. The other thing, and it's not on here and not real obvious where it is, and I kind of think it's probably somewhere to the left of the line for Key Crossing, but there's a power line right away through there. The existing power lines that go through there. And the only question I have is if we thought that the Key Crossing was of some value to us, could we, in some manner, attach a dedication of an easement or whatever through there that parallels that power line? Because that's more or less useless to the developer anyway. So maybe that there's something that to be gained by, if we think that Key Crossing Road is something we want, do we tie that to that power line easement?
So other than discussion, what are we saying tonight?
Well, I just think it's a discussion to me. So, city manager and I did not say, okay, yep, we're gonna, lop this off, whatever. We knew we had to talk to you all. Just wanted to sort of get a feel. I mean, I look at, this road over here really is something that developer must worry about. The blue that's on there for that area, that's a water-related or a wetland type area.
Wetlands, right.
It's not a water crossing, so it's not as scary as it looks on here.
But that part of that road, Daryl, from Route 140 over to Old Taneytown, with that wetlands there, it just increases the cost.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, plus, I mean, my first thought was, if you're coming out to 140 from that road, cars are already going 50, 60 miles an hour.
Right.
You know,
You might as well just go to the circle.
Yeah, I don't think that's a benefit to.
I think the only point of the Key Crossing Road was if that was supposed to bridge over 140, and that's why the section goes down to Old Baltimore Pike, or Old Taneytown Pike, rather.
And if you exited from here to there,
Say it again?
came out of Carroll Vista and went there, then.
Or that's something that would maybe spur development here.
But when we get to the master plan working on that, I think
Yeah.
we need to make some decisions. But like I said,
This part.
I'm almost certain we
part is
talked
the
about an overpass going into
benefit to
140s.
This part.
And that was if you were going eastbound.
I don't think they'd go through. I think it would be.
That might not have been more than 10 years ago. I can't remember.
I don't know, this is in the 2010 comp plan. It does exist.
We talked about it back then.
Yeah, I downloaded that today.
So they're just 14 years old anyway.
That's right.
All right, did that cover what you wanted to talk about for this evening?
So I'm hearing no great love for Key Crossing Road, really.
No, great, what was that again?
No great love for Key Crossing Road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it makes any sense right now.
Not on the southwest side.
Yeah, and like I said, the only reason to extend it across all the way to Old Taneytown Road was if you had to go fly over 140. If you don't have to fly over 140, that road serves no purpose at all.
Really terrible right here. You don't have to go down here, we come out to a red light.
Yeah. I still think it's too much traffic here, but do that. All right,
So,
Okay.
we'll hold those thoughts
all right, yeah, I mean,
for
it's,
future discussions on it.
yeah, if somebody comes back with something more concrete, but, you've got you've heard the concerns of the group here, so.
okay, good,
Anything else?
yeah,
Taneytown Supply.
yes.
People ask about it.
I get that question all the time.
Supply.
Taneytown Supply, the
lumber.
hardware, when we gonna see the hardware store?
Yeah,
The hardware store.
It's still working through.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so none of the projects that are, so just for a second on the agenda, Chairman, if you don't mind.
okay.
All right, so you guys are probably thinking I'm fibbing about the whole sheets thing. This old guy's not making it up. So I was proactively sent an email after the last 3 years for them to sign a PWA for the stormwater assets at Sheets. Run and hide, run and hide, run and hide. And then I call them, and next thing, hey, Daryl, what's up? It's Brian. How's it going? So anyway, they're just this is a huge, fast-growing machine. And he explained to me a year and a half ago, his job is to get his sheets ready to pop out of the ground. He's off to something else. The surety on that's $300-some thousand is still being held entirely. And I can't imagine us seeing these sheets in that purview. But anyway, so the letter a month or so-ish ago, because in my office sometimes it seems like Groundhog Day. The movie, their Sheets legal team has had it in their office for a couple weeks now. So I'm hoping really one day is just probably find in the mail a PWA that we can get that off there. 2 of the VAPCO projects will be coming off there soon as well. We just got to do a couple little things. The agenda has changed a little bit as far as where the site plans are, like Allendale parking lot's down. The VAPCO third amendment is down in construction. So I only have one more space to add another. So Cureleaf took my last spot before we're going to be a 2-page agenda. So, or I'm going to go a font so small, you're going to need help reading.
I don't know about the rest of the members of the planning commission, but it wouldn't hurt my feelings to see this go to a 2-page agenda
Oh, yeah,
now,
that'd
so
be
that I
nice.
can read the thing.
Well, with the Tony
Just
Supply,
saying.
we have to do a new concept plan there, right? Past the date, right?
What was that?
Concept plan
Is overdue.
for Tony Supply, it was,
Yeah.
May of 23.
Yeah, I was looking at some of those dates earlier today, and, you know, we're well past a year on.
Yeah, concept's the one we're worried about
Yeah,
for a year. But-
yeah, I didn't see, there's no dates for preliminary, all right, duration for the preliminary plan?
Pretty much not. So when you sit down with 100, excuse me, plus lots with Carroll County for the submittal, you're spending thousands per unit. So you're not gonna walk away from that real easy. I mean, 'cause that money's not coming back to you. So once they've committed to that point, and that's when we require the escrow fees and site development review fees and that type of thing, which is a lot smaller with the county, but it's normally for real at that point because there's investors behind it.
Did Pat Small's project drop?
He hadn't done anything with it.
The one by his shop?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, that was a site plan waiver.
Right.
know.
So, but I mean, did he drop it because
Did
he
it
hasn't
drop-
done anything?
Did it drop the plans, or is it planning on continuing it, or what's happening?
I don't know.
Because that's kind of like whatever happens, it looks like a standstill.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know,
I
I
see
didn't know
it.
if he was waiting on something from you,
No.
permit or something,
What I
or,
was waiting from him, is, I think he changed builder again, maybe? I honestly don't know.
okay.
Yeah.
Just one other thing real quick, just, you know, we were talking about the,
What do you mean quick?
I'll be as quick as I can, just want to suggest something. You know, and this is something that will come up as we do our comprehensive plan discussion, but in the area where we're talking about the general business on this Hoffman property, I think I've raised this with you once before, but I think it's something we've got to be thinking about, is mixed-use development in some of that commercial area, you know, where you've got maybe a 3-story building with condos on the 2nd and 3rd floor and retail on the 1st floor. Because that can work towards affordable housing in that you are reducing the cost of the footprint of that kind of the upper level housing, And it's just something, I don't think it's allowed under our code currently, and it's something we ought to be thinking about doing. And that's the end of that, the end of my comment there.
But there's the thoughts, there's the things we need to bring up and keep on our list. Okay.
Okay. I'm glad I brought it up then.
Anyone from the floor would like to come forward, make comments? Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you for coming.
No one has anything else? Looks like we're looking at October 28th.
Yep.
Look good for everyone? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Who made that?
Me.
Oh, Chris made a motion for adjourn, second by Bill. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, guys. A lot of good discussion.